Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Colby Sample. I'm honored to be your moderator for this Meet the Candidates meeting for the Fair Oaks Ranch City Council election. As a board member of FORHA for the past 3 years, I've had the privilege of working closely with our community and seeing the firsthand importance of effective leadership. Tonight, I am pleased to introduce to you 3 outstanding candidates who have stepped up to serve our city. Our first candidate is Rochelle Garcia, who resides in Elkhorn Ridge for 3 years. Our second candidate is Keith Rhodes, who resides in the Fountains and has for 6 years. And our third candidate is Ryan Schnoke, who resides in Frontgate and has for 6 years. Tonight's format is going to be a round-robin question and answer. That means each candidate is going to get an opportunity to answer a question for the first time. So you'll go, I'll ask you the first question, you will follow up that and answer that same question, then you. The second question will go to you first, you second, third, so on and so forth. There will be 9 questions. Each one of you will have about a minute to respond. We're going to try and keep to that time because we are limited on time. At the end of the evening, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing statement. Any of you guys have any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you for being here, guys. Appreciate it, y'all. Everyone who's like logged in, whatever, and people who are here. Let's get this thing started. Okay. So our first question, for many years, water-only customers of Fair Oaks Ranch Utility were subsidizing losses of wastewater utility to the tune of several hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. A little over a year ago, the results of a study by a consulting group in conjunction with members of the community were delivered to the council. To date, the subsidy appears to continue. Do you support the continued subsidization? If not, what steps would you take to resolve the issue?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the very first portion of that question? I couldn't hear it clearly.
For many years, water-only customers of Fair Oaks Ranch Utility were subsidizing the losses of the wastewater utility to the tune of several hundred thousands of dollars a year. You want me to repeat the whole thing?
No, sir.
Okay.
So as far as our wastewater goes, I think at this point, with the rates that we currently have, it's going to be critical that we're looking at what our residents' needs are and making sure that we're meeting them. I think we need to make sure that we are supplying our customers with the responsible and utilities. And so I think part of that comes into engaging them with their thoughts and needing their input into what they're wanting to see within their utility system. And I think it's going to be critical that we have those conversations together as a community, and whether that means rates are adjusted, that all needs to be looked at together, looking at the impact on the residents utilizing those services, as well as making sure that we're still able to give them the highest quality service that they deserve.
Thank you, Rochelle. Keith, do you need me to repeat that question, or are you good?
No, I think I wrote it down, so I think I got it. Thank you. You know, when it comes to services, residents need to pay for services they receive. They shouldn't be paying for services they don't receive. So this is a complex issue, we know, because of the way the ranch water is being supplied by several different sources, and wastewater is being treated by different ways. We have people on septic, we have people on our own systems, and people on saws. But I think my position is the wastewater that is being generated by the people on the wastewater system, that should generally be paid by the people who are using it. Now, with that said, this is not an easy issue to solve, and I think the study last year, which I have not seen, but if I get elected to the council, I'll definitely look into it and take some analytical analysis of it myself, and then go from there to try to help come up with a solution, because we do need a solution.
Ryan, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I've got it. I'm good. So, by the way, my last name is Shanaki, so good try, but I usually have to correct it. That's fine. And it's Roden as well, so we'll get that right. So, yes, so this is a question we had last night in Bernie as well, and I don't know that any of us had a great answer last night. So I did a little research last night to understand it a little bit better, and what I found is that, yes, we do have more customers on water than wastewater. And so all the customers on the water utility are subsidizing some of the wastewater fees. And I don't think that is the right answer. I think there was a attempt to keep the wastewater rates steady, and to fund the changes and the updates that need to happen with that, we're going to have some significant rate increases from what we saw at the council meeting last week. So I think those subsidies do need to end, and we need to have those bills and charges be made fairly across the different utilities.
Okay, thanks, guys. So, Keith, this question is going to be for you. Property taxes for homeowners have consistently gone up over the last 5 or so years, even though in recent years the property tax rate went down. Sales tax income has increased, and the city has booked revenue surpluses. What is your position in continuing this trend, and why?
Nobody wants more taxes. Nobody in this room wants more. Nobody in the city wants more. So in order to control the taxes, we need to be sure that we build a budget, that the city itself has a budget that's built from ground up, so they can really know exactly what is needed to operate the city. And yes, taxes have gone up because we've had an extreme economic situation where valuations on homes have gone up, which has caused all of us to pay much more in property taxes. My position is we need to try to limit that and, if possible, lower it. I know at one point in time the city lowered the rate, as you said, but we're all suffering from the unusual economic times that we've had. So my position is we try to control the taxes, keep them from going up any further, and really take a hard look at our budget and the way we spend our money and make sure we're doing the right thing for the citizens.
Ryan, you good?
Yeah, can you restate the question? I kind of missed the first half.
Yeah, you bet. Property taxes for homeowners have consistently gone up over the last 5 or so years, even though in recent years the property tax rate went down. Sales tax income has increased, and the city has booked revenue surpluses. What is your position in continuing this trend, and why?
I think that we do need to try to hold our tax rate as steady as we can. I think one of the bigger challenges is that property values have gone up so much, especially in our area, that even if the rate stays the same, our tax dollars change, right? We end up paying quite a bit more. So I think we can try to keep the city running on a lean budget, make sure that the staff we have is appropriate, that we don't have more staff than we need or are doing things that are more complex than we need as well. There's probably several areas of the city where we can look at different ideas to run things in a more economical and a more efficient way, so that we can hold that tax steady and possibly even again decrease that if possible, right? But at the same time, we need to make sure we're supporting our key services. We need to make sure that everybody has their utilities that they need. We need to make sure that we have the police protection that we need and that our city continues to function. We have roads that aren't in bad shape. So it's a difficult question, but it's certainly something that we will address in the budget. And I will do everything I can to help keep that tax rate where it is. I think that's why a lot of us live here versus north or south of us or east or west of us, because we like the tax rate here a little bit better.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Do you need me to repeat the question for you?
No, sir.
Okay.
So we need to find the right balance between low taxes and infrastructure maintenance. I would like to use the CIP and the SAP that are currently in place to guide us for the needs and upgrades of our city infrastructure. We all work hard for our tax dollars, and if elected, I vow to you that I will be a conservative steward of your tax dollars. My husband and I personally, we run our household conservatively. We track every dollar. We make a budget, we stick with it. And doing this practice has allowed us to hit many milestones. One of those is buying a home. And it gives us the freedom in an emergency. We have finances, we're prepared. And that's how I plan to look at our city finances as well.
Thank you. Okay, Ryan, this question is going to be for you. Everyone is concerned about the growth taking place in and around Fair Oaks Ranch. What are your views on the challenges our city faces in responsibly managing growth? Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's something that we all have a concern about, right? Especially we see all the new multifamily developments popping up around us. We know that Lemon Creek Ranch is going in, which is a lot of retail in addition to some multifamily properties as well. And so I think one of the biggest challenges out of that for most of us will be the traffic. And how do we keep this traffic out of our city that we don't want in it? So when I was the president of the Crown Ridge HOA, we had some of those same challenges. And we worked really closely with the city. I had several meetings with City Council in San Antonio on how we can keep that traffic out, how we can do studies and understand what that traffic looks like now. And I also have modeling and predictive modeling skills that I use on a daily basis in my professional career that will help me understand what that traffic looks like today and what it's predicted to look like in the future as well. So that will allow us to make decisions on how we maintain our roads, things that we can do to keep people out of our city. And we want people to come here, so that's not quite the right way to say it, but keep people from cutting through our city. That's really our goal, is we want our roads to carry us where we need to go, but we don't want people using them as a shortcut, because then they're speeding, they're driving dangerously, and those kind of things. So I have that experience and those skills to help with that.
Okay, Ryan, thanks. So again, candidates, we're going to try and keep answers close to a minute. So if we get close to there, I'll probably kind of give you a warning. Rochelle, you're next. Do you need me to repeat this? No problem. Everyone is concerned about the growth taking place in and around Fair Oaks Ranch. What are your views on the challenges our city faces in responsibly managing growth?
So growth has continued to be, and I think is going to continue to be, a large concern. We see the daily reminders. I am focused on balancing the growth with the needs of our city. I think we can do that in a very responsible way and preserve our neighborhoods and the natural resources that we have. We all came to this city for a reason that we love. And I think it's important to realize that a lot of the growth that we're experiencing is outside of our city limits, which can be frustrating at times. It's out of our control, but what we can do is work together with our neighboring cities. We can open those lines of communication. I think elected officials and city staff need to develop relationships with their counterparts in our neighboring cities. If there's something coming our way, to have a heads up on it and to actually give us the opportunity to go represent our residents and speak at those council meetings on your behalf. Let them know how it's going to impact us, how it's going to impact our roads, so that way we can be better prepared and that we're representing you.
All right, thanks. Now, I'm going to increase this because we're kind of going a little bit fast, so we'll change it to like a minute and a half. Keith, do you want me to repeat this question?
No, I've got it. Thank you. So, growth is I think Brian noted, is happening all around the city on the outside of our perimeters. He mentions Lemon Creek, and it's not part of Fair Oaks, but it's going to impact our traffic and our thoroughfares. But growth within the city, that's what we can manage. And the city has done a good job so far in putting together some things. They have a comprehensive plan that is the vision for how growth should happen in Fair Oaks. There's also a UDC, which is a Unified Development Code, that is an enforceable document that anybody building or wanting to expand or develop into the area has to conform to. The city also has a very active and engaging planning and zone commission. So these three things out there that are already in place are built to help manage growth as we go forward, because none of us want the high density multi-family units near our properties. That's why we moved out here. But in addition with that, I think we probably should take a look at our development code and see if we need to make some changes in order to strengthen our position to manage the growth that's going to happen. It's coming, and Texas is a property right state, so we have to do whatever we can to help manage it and, frankly, work with the developers so we don't lose control of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Michelle, this question's for you. Please describe the approach you would use to prioritize and fund the maintenance of the city's infrastructure.
So our infrastructure is important. It's how we utilize our roads, it's our utilities, it's the inner workings of our city. And we need to make sure that we are prioritizing that as number one above all else. It's going to include the safety of our residents. It's what you're going to see on a daily basis as you're driving through town, but it's also what you're not going to see. You need to know that as a city official, that we are working for you on your behalf. And I'd like to be able to be conservative with our funds, but while realizing that we have to continue to maintain what we have. It's going to be critical that we don't let things get to the point where it's a dire situation and it's a massive overhaul where the cost of that's going to be great. We need to look at these things on a smaller scale so that we're maintaining them over the course of the life of these items. It also helps reduce the impact that we see as residents. It's not an immediate large amount, but we can reduce it and look at it over time.
Keith, do you want to repeat that question?
No, I think I've got it. Thank you for offering. We do have a lot of infrastructure in the city that needs to be constantly looked at and addressed. You know, there's two factors here. One is there's maintenance that has to go on to keep things operating and in good shape. And then there's the other thing about expansion. And we need to make sure we have a plan for a long-range, long-term vision for where we need to expand. We know what the city zoning map is, we know what the land use map is, we know the types of residents we have, we know the types of connections they have to our services. But with all these infrastructure, to prioritize that, my background, I'm a CPA, so we are used to prioritizing activities such as this to see what is the most critical services we need, because our residents need to have those services, whether it's police, water, or wastewater, or even fire protection that we get from the surrounding neighborhood, from the other district. So for us to prioritize it, we need to sit down, and again, goes back to budgeting and looking at our needs and looking at a long-range plan, and then making that thing go into action and deliver on it.
Thanks, Keith. Ryan, do you want me to repeat that question for you?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So one of the biggest things is we have a professional staff that can track the needs of our infrastructure, our roads, our utilities, and those kind of things. So we really need to leverage those skills that they have. These are things that they do for their day job. This is their profession. So we need to find out from them what all of the big items are and what all the little items are. And then we need to determine what are the most impactful and the biggest risk items that we have. For example, the wastewater upgrades that they need to do are probably the biggest risk, because nobody wants that problem, right? We don't want wastewater failure in our city. And so we find what's the most critical, and we fund and prioritize those that we can afford that are the most critical. And I think wastewater is a good example of how we weren't very proactive, and now our wastewater customers are going to pay a pretty big price because they're going to have a pretty big increase based on the fact that the council and the staff was trying to keep that rate steady for so long. And I know everybody enjoyed that, and now we get to pay the piper, unfortunately. So just prioritizing, looking at risk, it's a big deal. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Keith, this question's for you. Please describe your approach to managing the increasing flow of traffic in Fair Oaks Ranch.
Managing traffic is a problem because we have much more traffic coming through our city. It's already been discussed, earlier, but I think it's the same thing. It's the same concept. We have to assess what is the traffic, what are our options, and the council's role is to really set policy and strategic direction for the city to execute upon. So from my perspective, when we start looking at traffic studies that we have probably had done, I'm not privy to those at this point, not being on the council yet. But we need to do a study to be sure we have good information on our traffic and figure out exactly how do we manage, the speed limits. We've got other things that I think the city desires. We would like to have more bike lanes, and we'd like to have more multi-use roads, but these things are expensive. And in order to do that, we have to look at funding options, and we have to make sure that the residents are comfortable with it. None of us want bad roads, and we know there's roads that need repair today, and we know that there's roads that's going to be needed to be widened down the road. But my approach would be to analyze it, do some projections, and then try to build a plan to solve it.
Thanks, Keith. Ryan, do you want me to repeat that question?
I'm good. So my approach to the traffic is something I've had experience with in Crown Ridge, right? We had problems with people cutting through and different things as well. We did have a traffic study done on detail corn, I believe in 2021, might have been 2020. Pretty extensive study, actually, so we can leverage that data for sure. I think we should do a similar study, although I don't think it needs to be quite as big and as expensive as the one on Dietz on the Parkway, so that we understand how the traffic is moving through. We probably need to update the Dietz study a little bit because we have 2 schools along there now that have more students than they did a couple years ago, so we probably need to update those. But the bottom line is we need a baseline. What does our traffic look like today? What did it look like a few years ago? And what do we predict it's going to look like in the future? And then we can make decisions on how we slow that traffic down and encourage people outside of the city to go around rather than through the city. So I think those are some of the big things. Just have those comparison points, have an understanding of what it's going to look like in the future, and then start to get ideas of how we're going to manage that.
Rochelle, you good?
Yes. So we all agree that growth is our concern and it's been affecting our traffic and the safety of our roads. We do currently have a budget of $1 million to maintain our roads and to ensure that we're meeting all of the safety standards with those roads. They're wide enough, they meet the residents' needs. It needs to be safe, first and foremost. For traffic, we do currently have a transportation plan that is in place. And so I would first look at the current plan, thinking what was the intended goal of the plan when it was drafted? And then asking more questions. Is it still benefiting the residents? Yes or no? If not, then we need to ask additional questions. What needs to change? Why? We need to loop in the residents. We need to hear from them. How is the traffic affecting your community? What would you like to see? And then having that dialogue together so that we can go ahead. The goal is to get residents through the city safely. And that's something that I think we can all agree on. And only after looking at the plan, talking with the residents, and going over that in further detail, then I would say looking at the growth pattern, we could sit down and make a change.
Thanks, Rochelle. All right, Ryan, this question's for you. FORHA's primary role in the city is to own and manage the parks and trails for exclusive use of FORHA members. Considering the fact that the city is continuing to grow and not all the citizens are FORHA members, what changes, if any, would you want to make?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that. We're not running for FORHA. We don't have any control over FORHA at the city level, so I think that's really up to FORHA to decide how they want to do that. Some things that I would like to see is with Lemon Creek Ranch coming in, I know that several of us would probably like to be able to get there by golf cart. I don't believe FORHA owns any land that will get us there, so I think the city can certainly help with that. I think the city can certainly continue to work with FORHA to make sure that the city is invested in the parks and trails, because I think that's really important that we work together with FORHA. And then, we can give them suggestions what we would like to see, and then kind of follow their lead. That's what they were designed for. That's what they were commissioned for. We respect the work that they have done and appreciate that. I know everybody loves the trails. And as we work on traffic and those things, and we talk about multimodal transportation, walking, biking in the city, that's probably something else that we would need to work in tandem with FORHA on as well.
Thank you. Rochelle, do you, sorry, can you repeat the question?
No, it's okay. So FORHA has been doing a fantastic job serving the community with our parks, our trails. My kids love them. They're fantastic. They're always clean. They're always safe. It's put together. They do a fantastic job, and I personally, I agree with Ryan. I don't think that we should be making any changes or recommendations for FORHA. I think they're doing a fantastic job. As a city, we should continue to support that. Yes, all residents may not be a part of FORHA, but that's okay. That was a choice that was given at the time. And if that was something that we wanted to discuss further, I would say that's a conversation with FORHA and the residents.
Keith?
I think you're finding that all three of us think that that's a FORHA issue, but
Sure.
one thing that's important here is the continual collaboration with FORHA to ensure that what they're doing is in sync with what the city's needs and growth are, because they're beautiful trails, and it's one of the key features of our city. So it's very important to all the residents of the city. So I don't have a plan for how I would change the trails or suggest other things at the moment. I do know there have been suggestions for some specialty uses like soccer fields and other event type facilities in the parks. However, that takes money, and I'm sure FORHA has entertained those and has looked into those, and it would be up to them to see how they would be able to manage that and fund it and continue working with the city. I believe there's a great relationship with the city, and that's one of the things the city doesn't have to worry about because FORHA does a great job taking care of it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So, Rochelle, this question is going to be for you first. The periodic issues with drainage and flooding have been on the radar screen of the city for several years. How do you believe the city should move forward on dealing with this issue?
So why I chose to run was actually related to some drainage issues that I experienced in my home. Shortly after my husband and I, my family moved here, we experienced some pretty significant drainage issues. We had cars on the street flooding. We had porta potties running down the street. It was very stressful. And to be honest with you, I didn't know who to call during that time. And we had a lot of sleepless nights, and I finally said, I'm gonna call the city. So I called, and I was extremely impressed because the mayor called me back and listened to my concerns. He came out, he checked out the property, he saw what the problem was, and he helped me to get the right contacts. So that has allowed me now, we don't have drainage problems anymore. But I understand the stress that those drainage problems cause, as well as the safety hazard. So I think it's critical that we look at those, and as residents, we need to go ahead and bring those forwards. When we have large storms, if you have a problem, let us know.
Thanks, Rochelle. Keith, you may repeat the question?
No, thanks. I got it. The city has a drainage and flood plan in place, and they've been working diligently to try to execute on that. Again, like everything else, we're concerned about taxes and revenue increasing taxes to our city. Those things take money, and the city has set out a plan to try to deal with these over several years, and they've been looking at options in recent weeks of how they can do this and create a better situation with drainage. I live in a neighborhood that had a significant drainage problem. People that had water in their homes 2 feet high. And the city has been working as part of their overall plan to address that issue in the areas I live, just like Rochelle mentioned for her area. So I think the answer to that is we have a plan in place. I think the plan needs to be looked at periodically. I think we need to continue looking at how we fund it. And the council, its direction is to try to be sure that we provide a safe place for the residents to live, because we cannot have places in the city where emergency services can't get in times of extremely bad weather. And so we need to also be sure we are being cognizant of that and making sure that we have an operating drainage plan that delivers those results. So there's more to come on drainage. It's not going to be a situation one and done. The last thing I'd like to say is one of the complications the city has with drainage is there's a lot of easements that the city doesn't control. And so with that, it creates a whole lot of issues in trying to make this plan work. So that's just another factor in the things that we'll look at on the council.
Thank you. Ryan, you good?
I'm good. So yes, I think that's been a challenge for us here in Fair Oaks for a long time is drainage. And of course, as you get more development, you're going to have more problems with that. And I think that we've learned in the recent past that one of our challenges is that we may not have held the developers accountable for designing these things. I think that's part of Keith's neighborhood's problem, probably part of Rochelle's neighborhood's problem, is that they didn't hold the developers as accountable as they needed to. But the city, it seems, has done a great job. A couple of weeks ago, at one of the council meetings, they had presentations on 4 flood-prone areas, and professionals that had done assessments, and they recommended that we didn't need to take action on 2 that were somewhat expensive. They recommended a limited action that'll actually, in addition, give us a bunch of data about how floodwater runs through there. If you can tell, I'm a bit of a data nerd, so I love it when we can get data for free out of another project, right? And then for the fountains, they are going to do kind of the mid-priced option, because we do have some water that Fair Oaks is sending into the fountains that we need to help them deal with as well. So for the total budget that the city had for those, We're doing the projects that the city felt needed to be done for under what that original budget looked like. So I think the biggest thing we need to do going forward is just to keep active on those, keep looking at those same areas, identify the new areas that we're seeing water running off and flooding, so that we can continue to be proactive on that and continue to engage the contractors that we need to understand how that affects us and what we can do about it.
All right, thanks, Ryan. So, Keith, this next question's for you. It's kind of a genie in a lamp question. So I'm going to take the timer off on this one. You guys take your time to answer this. If you received $1 million grant to use for the city, you know what? Let's make it $5 million. If you received a $5 million grant to use for the city, any way you want it, I know, I'm making it fun now. What would you do and why?
5 million doesn't go as far as it used to, that's for sure.
That's why I just changed it from $1 million to $5 million. You want to go 10? You can go 10.
No, I think, I mean, again, I think we have a lot of issues on the table, you know, that are financial requirements for the city. And I think right now, we all recognize that the top concerns are water and wastewater, and sources of water and then infrastructure solutions on the wastewater. So I think, you know, if you had $5 million to do this, we'd probably target it to that right away to get that up and running. Because with the growth coming, we've got to be able to provide the connections to our systems. And so we cannot get behind the curve. And I don't, unfortunately, think that $5 million would solve our total problem, but it certainly would make a dent into it. So my first project would be to deal with the water as a number one priority, if we were to be able to get a grant of that amount, and try to put some more stuff into place in faster time frames than we have planned in our water and drainage plan. So that's where I'd stick it today. And then, you know, if we get that solved and we had money left over, which would be very doubtful, we could take it and address it in other places. Thank you.
Ryan, you want me to repeat that?
Good. You know, there's a lot of things that could be done with a windfall like that. One of the first things that I would want to see done, I've talked to Chief Morning about a few things with the police department. Police department officers in Texas and here in Fair Oaks make about $62,000 a year. Clearly not a salary that enables them to live in a community like ours, right? And maybe they don't want to live in the community they work in, but it would be nice if they didn't have to live 20 miles away. So maybe we could do something to help our police department and help our police officers and help them to own a home that's a little closer to where they work. That would be one priority that I would have, is just to help the police department. I would also want to call a meeting like this, and I bet if we had $5 million to spend, we could fill the whole room with everybody with ideas, right? I think that's the next thing you do. You say, hey, Fair Oaks, come down, tell us what your ideas are. Let's figure out how we can use this money the best way and also get some nice bonuses for us out of it, right? Like, let's not spend the whole $5 million to do something cool, but let's spend a little bit of it to do something we could enjoy, but then fund some things that we need and help our police department as well. Thank you.
Rochelle, you good?
Yes. So $5 million, that sounds pretty amazing. I would start with our infrastructure, the wastewater, water, drainage, our roads, all of those areas that we've all talked about tonight. Let's put the money where we need it first and start there. But then I also, thinking conservatively, let's save some for the maintenance that we see all these items continue to need over time. So yes, we can spend a bunch of money and put them in there, get us up to speed, but they're gonna be continued expenses for us. So if we can reserve some to help fund that going forward, I think we'd see an improvement with rates and things like that, because we would be able to have the funds available.
All right, thanks, guys. So we're moving really fast, not having to repeat any questions, so we're doing really good on time. Ryan, congratulations. I'm pretty sure if any police are listening, you're never going to get a ticket again. By the way, I'd also give my $5 million to the police department. My name's Colby Sample, drive white F-250. If y'all see me, drive down the road, for any cops that are watching. So this is our last question, kind of pertains to police. So this one, Ryan, you're first. Fair Oaks Ranch has a well-established reputation as a place to live. Please describe your views on public safety, including policing, fire safety, and emergency services.
I think we'll all agree that policing is one of the most important things for us, right? Fair Oaks Ranch is one of the safest cities in Texas, safest cities in the country. You can look at any of the statistics. I can't tell you the exact place, but we're rated pretty high in the top 25, I believe, cities in Texas as far as safety. Even if you go look at next door, you'll see people posting, oh, my home was robbed, my truck was stolen, people were breaking into my houses. But when you look at where those neighborhoods were, they're rarely in Fair Oaks Ranch, right? So we all appreciate that, and that's one of the reasons that we're here. So, we should do what we can to support our police department. Fire's a little different, right? We're serviced by a volunteer fire department. So I'm sure we can help them in some ways. I don't actually understand that relationship that well. That's one of the things that I will learn and understand if I'm elected, because I think we need to have a good relationship in that way as well, because that affects our insurance rates and a lot of other things. So those are some of the things that I would say on that. Thank you.
Michelle?
So our city currently does a fantastic job prioritizing our safety and our community needs. I think that we have a respect for law enforcement, first responders, and everyone that is really above bar than other communities that you're going to see, which is fantastic. I would say that we need to continue to utilize those services. We need to be honoring our fire, our police, first responders. But I think we also need to realize there's a lot of complexities. One of the things with being a city with 3 counties, right? One of the things I learned in my recent tours with the city was when there's an arrest that happens, depending on the county, the police officer has to take that individual to that county. That's very far. So they do a fantastic job thinking ahead and having that extra officer on duty so that they can maintain the safety here where it matters for us while they're handling that situation. So I can't think of a better way to handle that. And again, knowing that they're prioritizing our needs, it's why we moved here. It's the safety. It's number 4 in Texas. I mean, you can't beat that. It's a blessing to have that, and I think we need to continue to honor that and make that a priority, and I think that's going to serve all of us well.
Keith?
Likewise, it's a great place to live. It's safe. That when we bought our home, the people we bought it from told us they never lock their doors, which, I thought, well, that's not real smart, but I do lock my doors, but at the same time, I feel very safe. I can go out at night. I can walk down my street. I do not worry about being attacked and being accosted or burglaries. But we've had more of that. So, surrounding being that we've got growth going on around us, you're going to have more of that. Our police department does a great job. They're fantastic. Like Ryan said, I think we're the 24th safest city in the state of Texas. Helotes is also in the top list of the safest cities. For me, I would keep a priority on our police force, and I'd make sure we have adequate funding for them. I'd make sure we attract quality personnel, and we keep them, because it's very expensive for employee turnover. So the last thing is that fire, I've had some people that I've talked to wanted us to have our own fire department, and my first question is, do you want to pay for it? So we have an arrangement with the Emergency Services District, and recently, as y'all have probably seen, the new fire department station was opened up on 3351, much closer to the ranch. So we do have a much better response to fire situations, and I feel much more comfortable that we've got much better coverage in the city. So for Keith, my priority would be the police department and personnel would stay a high priority, and I support them wholeheartedly. Thank you.
All right, guys, that concludes the questions for the evening. Again, we finished a lot faster than I thought we would. So thanks for taking notes and not making me repeat myself a lot. So for closing statement, take as much time as you want. You got 20 minutes left, so we'll start with, let's see, Ryan, you went last, so Rochelle. Yeah, sure. Go for it. I might interrupt you, but.
So I'm Rochelle Garcia, and as your councilwoman, I want to preserve our high quality of life. I want to ensure that your voice is heard. I am running for you. This job is to serve you, and that's my heart. I want to balance the growth with the needs of the community, and I want us to prioritize public safety, like we just talked about. My fellow candidates and I think we all share common views on the vision of our city, and what stands out to me is I do currently serve with the city. I am on the MDD, the Municipal Development District Board of Directors, and I've been doing that for a year and a half with the city. I value my commitments, and you matter to me. So I want you to know your voice will be heard, and your voice matters. I have been successful in my career and my roles as a general manager and an HR consultant. I'm proud of the teams that I've helped build and the conversations that I've been able to facilitate. I believe in working together to reach our goals. Again, place 2 for City Council is one of 6. So we're going to be joining a team. We have to be willing to work together and able to have those conversations, not only with council, but with residents. And I think that we have common ground. We love our city. It's easy actually to agree when you can work together for a common goal. And that's what I want to do. As a general manager, no 2 days were ever the same. Someone would always have a quick question, need a decision, need direction, there's an issue. It's just, I had to adapt. I had to learn how to make decisions in fast-paced environments. I had to learn to do all of that while still communicating the objective with everybody involved. You really have to unify the team to be able to make the progress that you need. And that's something that I know that I'm capable of. And when decisions are made, it's made on facts. It's made on sound judgment. You have to remove the emotions. And I know that you can trust that when I make decisions, I make them thinking, when I go to sleep at night, I did the very best that I could, and I exhausted all options, because these decisions that we get to be a part of are big decisions, and they matter. They affect all of us. So I just would encourage you, check out my Facebook page, stop by the table, please. I'd love for you to meet my family, my husband, Matt, and my girls, Emma and Grace. And this is the second night we've done this, so this is probably gonna be the second night they get ice cream for dinner. I'm just letting you know now. They've earned it. But just, I want you to know that you can trust me, and I want you to know who I am and what I value. So I'd love to be able to talk with any one of you more. And with that, I humbly ask for your vote.
Okay, thanks, Rochelle. Keith, you have 17 minutes. If you want to take them, Ryan, I'm sorry.
Do I get to use my, do I get to tell jokes? I hope you take them to Parker's, for ice cream, right? So I'm Keith Roden, as you know, and I too am running for the City Council Place 2. A little bit about me: I'm a family man who is a husband to Nancy, my wife, sitting in the audience, a dad to 5 children, and that's why this hair is this color, because of the 5 kids. And I'm a grandpa called Papa to my 6 grandchildren, and I'm a certified public accountant. For the past 42 years, Nancy and I have lived in the Northwest San Antonio-Boerne corridor, and we moved to the ranch in 2017 after we got all the kids out of the house, out of college, and off the payroll. So we were looking forward to getting into a different place, because San Antonio had grown around us. I grew up in a small rural town. I loved outdoor activities as a kid. I hunted and fished, and I had great relationships with my neighbors, and we all worked together on things for our little community. Nancy and I both graduated from Baylor University, where I majored in accounting. Shortly after college, we married. This year, we celebrate 45 years in about 2 months. And we are active in our church and various nonprofit organizations. While starting my career in public accounting, I moved to industry, and that's what brought me to San Antonio. So here's the difference I think you'll find, is that I believe you'll find all 3 of us absolutely have a desire for the best for the city, and all 3 of us have done a lot of research on the city. But what I want to suggest is that I bring a solid stack of skills to the table, because in my life as a professional, I have been a chief financial officer and executive vice president of several companies. I've dealt extensively with regulatory bodies. And as you know, the city deals with laws and regulations and other regulatory bodies, so I bring a lot of experience in that area. I've sat on boards of directors and committees. In a Fortune 100 organization, I was a senior vice president, and I had responsibility for supply chain for our whole organization and negotiated many multi-million-dollar contracts. And then lastly, in that role, I developed strategic long-term plans. Currently, I serve on the HOA board of our neighborhood, and not only do we work on the things that are affecting our neighborhood, we have road issues, we have perimeter issues, we have issues with our fountains and our gate. So I understand the problems on a small scale for a little HOA also are no different than the problems on a large scale. But, so why am I running for city council? And some of our friends have asked me that because we all know it's a lot of work. But we've made the ranch our home. And I've been a lifelong servant, and I want to serve the community. There are many issues that face the city. I believe the tools I bring and the experience I bring will be a great asset to the council. My ability is to analyze, pay attention to detail, create strategies, collaborate with one another, which is critical for a city, especially a city that has an organization like FORHA to take care of our parks, and we have other surrounding communities to work with. Collaboration is key, and lead teams with the skills I bring. So here's my commitment. I commit to listen to you and hear what the concerns are. I will work to strengthen and support safety as a very high priority, and I will defend the rights of property owners. So I ask for your support, and I ask you to vote for Keith Roden on May 6th or April 24th if you want to go early. Thank you.
Okay, Ryan,
How much time do I get?
13 minutes.
Okay, well, I promise you that I won't use 13 minutes, so that'll be my first campaign promise. So I'm kind of going to take Keith's tack here, right? We didn't get a question to introduce ourselves, so let me tell you a little bit about who I am. So like Colby said, I've been here for about 6.5 years in Fair Oaks Ranch. We moved here from Crown Ridge. If you're not familiar with Crown Ridge, that's I-10 in Camp Bullis. While I was there, I served on the board of directors for 5 years, 3 years as the president. And an HOA is not a city, agreed, but Crown Ridge was kind of a small city in the size and scope that it was. So we had annual revenues of about $180,000 and had to manage those. We had, in addition to single-family residence, we had multifamily residential, we had retail, and we had commercial developments as well. We had a little over 800 single-family homes. We had 2 major apartment complexes, Oak Hills Church, Lutheran High School, the Shell gas station, dentist's office, a variety of things were in our owners association. We weren't a homeowners association, we were an owners association. So we had to manage that. We managed the medians for our roadways. We did projects like we replaced 2 miles of wooden fence along Camp Bullis with an $800,000 rock wall. So I've managed those kind of projects and advocated for those kind of projects as well in the past, so I have an understanding of those, how to work with the contractors, negotiate, get best prices, and get things done that we need to get done. As part of my day job, I am in a strategy unit for a major national bank. We do all the strategizing and analytics around where we have branches and where we put ATMs. As part of that, I work with a lot of demographic data. I work with household growth and household growth rates. I look at US Census data to understand how all those things are changing, how the demographics in different cities around the country look. So those are skills that I think will be very useful to City Council as well. Additionally, last May, I earned my Master's of Science in Data Analytics from UTSA. So now I understand how to do predictive modeling, I understand artificial intelligence, things that the council doesn't have today as a skill set, and things that we can find very useful. So those are some of the things that I bring to the table that'll be a little bit unique, and I hope you feel qualified me to serve on the council for you. In addition, we do a lot of volunteer work with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. My daughter's a type 1 diabetic, and so we got very involved with that organization. We do fundraisers with them every year. We've raised a little over $12,000 for them over the last couple of years. And my daughter was also recently selected as a delegate to go to Washington, D.C. this summer to visit with our congressmen, our senators, and advocate for care around that. So I'm using this experience to help her understand politics a little more because she thinks that may be a career that she wants to go into as well. My family is not here tonight because I told them specifically, please do not come, you will make me nervous. So if you would like to meet them, that would be great, but I did not want them here tonight. So again, I would be honored to have your vote. I think I can represent you well. I want to thank FORHA for letting us be here tonight, for giving us this forum. And I want to thank Keith and Rochelle, too. I think this has been a nice race. It's been uncontentious. We've all had some good conversations in the last couple nights, and I appreciate that very much. I know that's not always been the case with Fair Oaks City Council races, so thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, guys. So this concludes our Meet the Candidates event for tonight. They're actually, each candidate has a table set up outside if any of you guys want to go get to meet them, talk to them, ask more questions maybe that I didn't cover. I'd also like to thank FORHA, mainly myself, for doing this. I think I did a great job. Dana agrees. Dana said I did a great job too. Yeah, that's okay. You have a weird name. I'm just kidding, right? So, guys, it takes a lot of will to want to serve for your community. These guys, even putting themselves out here to want to do this is really awesome. We appreciate you guys for doing this. It's, you know, what you're signing up for is going to be amazing. You're going to love it, whoever wins. And we really do appreciate you volunteering for this. With that said, we also thank you guys for coming out tonight. For people who tuned in, who watched, thank you. You know, obviously we want people to vote. We want people to be involved in the city. So this is better turnout than I even thought we'd have. So thank you, everybody. Again, the candidates will all have tables outside. And I think, how long you want to be here for? Yeah, Ryan said he'll stay here all night. Okay.